All right, Larry Kruger here from the Pig and a Pickle Crew Show with a little preview of day 2 of the NFL Draft. And of course, check out Pig and a Pickle. 2 locations, Emeryville and Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. All right, let's talk a little bit about day 2. 49ers pick at the end of round 2 and the end of round 3. It's round 2 and round 3 is day 2 of the NFL Draft. And there's also a chance that they may move possibly Deebo Samuel. Who knows? Maybe Brandon Ayuk, but most likely it sounds like it's Deebo Samuel. And it sounds like Washington and New England may have some interest in the 49er receiver, Deebo, possibly. That's been being reported. They pick at the top of round 2. All right, where's the value here in round 2? The Niners went Ricky Pearsall, a slot receiver in round 1, and I think they got a productive player that probably is going to help them move on from, my guess is, Deebo Samuel. Now, if they move Deebo today, what do they do? Do they turn around and invest it in some other aspect of the roster? I would say the needs are offensive line, defensive tackle, cornerback, linebacker, possibly defensive end, and then of course safety. And then you never know as far as skill positions. It could be a tight end, it could be a running back, it could be a receiver. You never know how the Niners look at their skill positions. But let's go through where I think the real value is here. First of all, if you can get a pick at the top of round 2, I think Zach Frazier and Jackson Powers Johnson are 2 guys. If you really are intent about building a wall around Brock Purdy, man, it would be awfully nice to start with Zach Frazier. Frazier from West Virginia is just everything you want. He's a former accomplished wrestler. He's a 4.0 GPA. He's a multiple-time team captain. He's tough. He's physical. He's 310 pounds. He absolutely stonewalls people in the middle. So, and then Jackson Powers Johnson is a huge center with big-bodied guys. Both these guys are very, very physical and would be upgrades on Jake Brendel. If you could get, Frazier or Jackson Powers Johnson at the top of round 2, I think that's where the best value is going into that second round. But then you got to look quickly to the defensive tackle spot. And yeah, the Niners brought in Malik Collins, and yeah, they brought in Jordan Elliott, but they lost Eric Armstead, and Javon Hargrave was a huge, colossal disappointment. And they still don't have that second player on that defensive line other than Nick Bosa that commands a double team. And I think there's some opportunities to grab a high-end defensive tackle in round 2. The list is pretty impressive. First, it's Johnny Newton from Illinois. Very quick, 6'2", about 305 pounds, great hand usage, shoots gaps, gets into the backfield, makes a huge disturbance. Johnny Newton's had some injury problems, but man, he's really, really a good football player. Then my favorite is Michael Hall Jr. from Ohio State, who ran 4.76 at 299 pounds, making him the fastest defensive tackle in the draft class, according to the stopwatch. And then when you watch him, he displays that unbelievable quickness off the snap, and I just think he's an interior rusher who can stand in against the run. I kind of see maybe a little bit better pass rusher, a little less run defender, Bryant Young, who obviously, went to Canton, so he's a great, great player. But I do see a great player in Michael Hall. There's also Rook Ororo from Clemson, who, I think has got the best football of his life coming up right now. I mean, he's just scratching the surface. I think he could be one of the steals of this draft if we look back in 2 years. I think he's really coming. Then you got Braden Fisk, who at 295 pounds is very quick feet and can play in a rotation, give you some interior pass rush. You got Chris Jenkins from Michigan, who's a very, very good player in his own right, tremendous workout athlete. You got Mason Smith from LSU, who's 6'5", 310. Once upon a time, he was a 5-star prospect, really the highest rated guy on this board coming into his college career. He's had some injuries, but I mean, he is still a huge guy who can really move. And then there's Tavondre Sweat, who had the DUI recently from Texas, but man, he is a wide-bodied run stuffer. And I don't know round 2, but maybe at the end of round 3. He's a guy that's probably going to go somewhere between the last 10 picks around 3 and the first 20 picks of round 4. And with the 49ers having a late round 3 pick, they could grab a guy like Tavondre Sweat and, any of those guys that are available. Sweat, Newton, Hall, Aurora Rowe, Fisk, Jenkins, Mason Smith, all those guys I think are worthy of a day 2 pick. My favorite is Michael Hall, then probably Aurora Rowe. But there's Tavondre Sweat's more of a run stuffer. Chris Jenkins is more of a pass rusher. Johnny Newton can do both. I think Hall can do both. Aurora can do both. I think Fisk is more of a high active pass rusher. So anyway, defensive tackle. I would say defensive tackle is the sweet spot right now. There's a lot of good ones on the board. They're going to come off quickly. And if you can get Michael Hall Jr., that's the guy to go for sure. Now let's talk about corner. I think there's great value on the corner. Three of my favorite corners in this draft are right here. Now, I like corners on all 3 days of the draft. I love Willie Drew on day 3. I love Mikey Victor on day 3. I mean, there's several day 3 corners that are interesting. But day 2, TJ Tampa from Iowa State, big physical corner who will hit you. Max Melton from Rutgers is one of my favorite players in the entire draft. I think he's very safe. He's physical. He's fast. He ran in the 4.3s, and he plays very physical. So I think he could be a number 1 corner. And then there's Mikey Sainristil from Michigan, who had the interception that clinched the national championship. He was a receiver who switched over to defense, and now he's thought to be one of the best young nickel corners in this draft, and the slot corner is a vital position. So Sainristil's less physical. He's smaller, but he makes big plays. Melton, to me, is the total package. He's fast, he's physical, and yet he also can play the run. TJ Tampa is another guy who's physical, not quite as fast as Melton, but I like those 3 guys. So those 3 corners I'd be very interested in here on day 2. Here's where I think linebacker becomes a factor as well. There's some great linebackers here who are going to make Pro Bowls. Cedric Gray from North Carolina. That guy's a tackling machine. Edgerrin Cooper from Texas A&M. He can play any of the 3 linebacker spots. He's a tackling machine. And then there's Peyton Wilson, who won the Butkus Award from NC State, and he's just a tremendous athlete. He's a workout nut, and he's a tremendous he was a Butkus Award winner, and he went to the combine and lit it up. So, that's that subsection of great college player and elite testing athlete. I don't think you can go wrong there. So to me, Cedric Gray, Edgerrin Cooper, Peyton Wilson, some people would say Junior Colson from Michigan's in that class as well. Those linebackers are great value here on day 2. So I would, defensive tackle, I love those guys. I mentioned the 3 corners that I really like. I mentioned those 3 linebackers. Cedric Gray, to me, is the safest player in the draft. All the guy does is run and hit. He's scheme versatile. You can play him in a 3-4 in an inside duo. You can play him in a, he's a stacked backer. He's a stacked backer. He's not a pass rusher. He's not going to drop into coverage tons. He's more going to play the run. And he's a really good runner, and he's a really good blitzer, and he's a great tackler. Cedric Gray is very, very safe. So then you got center with Frazier and Jackson Powers Johnson. I kind of like Bo Limmer. I'm not sure if late round 3 is too early for him, but I really like him. Defensive end wise, there's, I have 3 guys that I really love at defensive end. Jonah Ellis from Utah, tremendous moves, all kinds of instincts, he's got a repertoire. He's like a 5-year vet. Mo Kamara from Colorado State. I would definitely take him in round 3. I mean, he's an absolute stud. He's just 6'1". If he's 6'4", he's going in the first round. Mo Kamara was incredibly productive. The athleticism is amazing. When you look at him, the only downside is he's 6'1". So, I mean, to me, being 6'1" and still being incredibly productive and athletic, I'll take Mo Kamara in a heartbeat. And then there's, Javon Solomon from Troy, who's a great pass rusher, led the nation in sacks. So those are the edge rushers that I like. And any of them, I would say, they're probably more round 3 than round 2 guys. But Kamara, to me, you can't overdraft him. He's so good. Offensive tackle wise, Blake Fisher from Notre Dame. A lot of people watch Joe Alt, but if you watch that film, Blake Fisher was pretty damn good as well. He played the other tackle spot, the right tackle spot. He's a nice player. I think Javon Foster, Garrett Greenfield are two other, Greenfield's more of a day 3 guy, but Javon Foster and Blake Fisher to me would be my 2 tackle targets on day 2. I think those guys Fisher is a hardworking guy, smart, excellent run blocker. Javon Foster, played right tackle, played left tackle. He could be a swing tackle this year. I think eventually he could replace Trent Williams at left tackle. I think he could give Colton McKivitz a run for his money at the starting right tackle spot. I love Javon Foster. If you're going guard, Mason McCormick from South Dakota State, total monster. To me, if you could rebuild this line on day 2 and day 3 with Zach Frazier, Mason McCormick, and Javon Foster, I think you would have rebuilt this line in the best way possible. So that those guys stand out as well. There's other tackles in the mix as well, but those are my favorite. And then safety wise, the Utah combo of Cole Bishop and Sione Vaki. I think the Niners, you can't go wrong with either one of those guys. Bishop's going to be more of a day 2 pick, or Vaki's going to be more of a day 3 pick. And then Malik Mustafa from Wake Forest, tremendous hitter. I mean, this guy is really a hitter, really physical, really like Malik Mustafa. And then I'll throw the one wild card from day 2 is Blake Corum. Blake Corum reminds me of Emmitt Smith. Blake Corum is a high character running back. If you're really wanting to change up your offense, maybe you want to add another dynamic running back. And if if you are going to move Deebo Samuel, and the talk is that they're going to trade Deebo Samuel, maybe Blake Corum makes sense. You draft a Blake Corum, you use McCaffrey a little bit more as a flexed out wide receiver and have him truly replace Deebo in this offense. So he's runner/receiver, and you have Blake Corum who gives you another dynamic runner. I know nobody wants to hear about 3rd round running backs and because the Niners struck out on a few of these guys, but Blake Corum to me has some Emmitt Smith qualities. You can feel his will. He's a tremendous inside runner. He will block. He scores touchdowns. He's really good in short yardage on the goal line. He makes guys miss. He reminds me a little bit of Marcus Allen, how uncanny he is at being, making the guys miss at the line of scrimmage in short yardage and on the goal line. He can catch the ball, but more than anything, it's just like, the way that you could feel the will of Emmitt Smith, you can feel the winning will of Blake Corum. And if I could get him in the 3rd round, if I could get an extra draft choice that would allow me to draft him in the 3rd round, I absolutely would do it. And I wouldn't think twice about it. So there you go. It's defensive tackle, it's corner, it's linebacker, it's center, it's defensive end, it's offensive tackle, it's safety. I think this is probably a little early for the tight end. I think there's more good tight ends on day 3. And running backs, there's a whole slew of them, but the only guy that I would consider today or tonight is Blake Corum from the University of Michigan. And to me, if you got Blake Corum, you're a better football team. You're absolutely a better football team. So if they do move off of Deebo, then, Pearsall replaces Deebo, but maybe McCaffrey as a receiver replaces a little bit of Deebo. Maybe it is the right time to add a Blake Corum and go for that big time running back to combine with Christian McCaffrey. I know a number of you going, no, we don't want a 3rd round running back, but I'll tell you, I'm a big Blake Corum fan. All right, that does it for the video. Thanks to all of you. And let's hear from our sponsor, Aura, the sponsor of this video. Have you ever typed your name on the internet and seen all of your private information is online? Are you tired of receiving tons of spam calls from random numbers? Are you receiving more and more of these as time has gone on? Well, that's where Aura, the sponsor of today's show, can really help you out. Data brokers sell your information to scammers and spammers and anyone else who may want to target you. Your full name, your email, your home address, all your records, your health records, who your relatives are. It's all out there. That's why I've been using Aura. Aura shows me which data brokers are selling my information and automatically submits opt-out requests for me. Cleaning up my information not only helps reduce the amount of spam I get, but it also protects me from hackers who could use the information to help them access my social media accounts, my bank accounts, or any other sensitive information. Aura also does so much more to protect me and my family from online threats I can't see. I get other features like antivirus, VPN, password management, parental controls, identity theft insurance, and more without having to download several different apps. It's really easy to set up. And best of all, I get everything at one affordable price. I value my privacy and I value yours. You can go to the link in the description to start your 2-week free trial. And thanks to Aura for sponsoring this video. And of course, thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of The Krug Show. And thanks to all you guys for supporting The Krug Show on YouTube.